The death of Ted Kennedy brings to an end the remarkable story of three brothers who each made an unforgettable contribution to American politics.
Ted Kennedy was the youngest of 9, and he was the youngest by 4 years. It was a pretty hard-driving family and very, very competitive. And so he was spared some of the sort of relentlessness of his parents' expectations for the older kids.
Tragedy first struck the Kennedy family in 1946 when Joe Jr., a World War II Navy pilot, was killed in action. Ted's older brother Jack took on the role of eldest son.
Jack was sort of serious and scholarly and would try to teach Ted lessons.
The torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
Bobby and Ted helped Jack with his presidential campaign and then went on to become successful politicians themselves. Each brother had his own style.
Jack Kennedy was an intellectual, and Teddy idolized him. Bobby Kennedy was a hard-driven, sort of relentless striver in a lot of ways, and Ted was not. Ted was gregarious and friendly.
Tragedy struck the family again in 1963 when President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas.
Ted took Jack's death very hard. He grieved over it deeply and worried when Bob was thinking of running for president, worried that he might get shot.
Senator Kennedy then going off into the kitchen area to retire to his room for the...
Teddy's fears came true. Just 5 years after the president's death, Bobby was gunned down at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles.
After Robert was killed, he wasn't dead for an hour before people started walking up to Ted and telling him he ought to run for president. And he was utterly shaken by it.
As he said many times, some men see things as they are and say why. I dream things that never were and say why not.
He realized that the rest of his life wouldn't be spent on his own terms. It would be spent trying to live up to the legacy of two martyred brothers.
Just a day doesn't go by where I'm not thoughtful about them and don't miss them. I mean, I do in a very, very real way.
Over the course of nearly 47 years in the Senate, Ted Kennedy defined himself on his own terms and created his own legacy.
I think he was the greatest senator of the 20th and thus far in the 21st century. I think they would indeed have been proud of him.
It's clearly an end of an era. The Kennedy story has been one of the great narratives of American life, and through Ted Kennedy, it has extended for more than half a century. But that hope, that dream of the 60s of the new frontier dies with Ted Kennedy.
Joining us now are two friends of Senator Kennedy in Newton, Massachusetts, Dick Clasby, and in Austin, Texas, his former press secretary, Bob Mann. Good morning to you both. Our condolences.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dick, talk to me about young Ted Kennedy at Harvard, where you played on the football team with him.
Well, of course, it is a very, very sad day today, but we have such wonderful memories. We're blessed. We played freshman football together. In those days, you played freshman football. You don't do that any longer. And that's where we met, and that's where I met my wife. And the congressman who became president, President Kennedy, came to all of our freshman games. So this is where we met and where we had a very, the start of a great friendship.
Dick, talk a little bit about him as a man, to have lived in the shadows of an unbelievable father, incredible brothers. Talk to us a little bit about the Ted Kennedy you knew.
Well, he certainly had a lot of things to live up to. He certainly was in a position where a lot was expected of him. But I really didn't see that bothered him a great deal. He loved to play sports. He was a very good football player. We reenacted some of the passes that I threw him that he caught for many, many years. So I know that it was in the back of his mind. I knew that he had to live up to certain expectations, but he was a very, very happy, a very courteous and just a wonderful friend back at Harvard.
Bob Mann, to work shoulder to shoulder, elbow and by elbow with someone who is dedicated to so many different causes. What was that work like in his office?
Well, I never played football with Senator Kennedy. He was sort of beyond that when I worked for him. He was in his early 50s. But working for him was indeed a contact sport. He was very demanding, and he was a perfectionist. He read everything that crossed his desk. The staff kept an old briefcase, and if you wanted him to see something himself, you put that in what they called the bag. And he would take that home with maybe 10, 20, 30 items in it. And the next day you'd get back in his scribbled handwriting, ugh, or go for it, or come see me. The story that struck me early on in working for him was as he was getting ready to go to South Africa to confront the leaders of South Africa to do what he could to bring an end to apartheid. And some of the staff were concerned that there might well be an assassination attempt in that country. And I raised that question with Senator Kennedy one night. And he said to me, he said, Bob, I have to go. I'm the only man in the world who can call the type of attention that must be called for the leaders of South Africa to put an end to apartheid. And my brother Bobby went. And if I'm to die, following my brother's footsteps, trying to bring an end to the evils of apartheid, then I shall just die. Courage was the one word that I saw time after time after time, physically, intellectually, politically, legislatively. Ted Kennedy had a passion for life, but also a passion to be, he was endeared, I think he was a fearless man in all respects.
Bob, thank you so much. Dick, thank you both very much for taking the time to speak with us today, and please accept our condolences.